Trader Joe strikes again. Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Friday, April 26th. It is day number 2 of the 2024 NFL Draft, and the New York Jets, Joe Douglas, and the rest of the front office and coaching staff go out and bring in a big-time receiver to add to this wide receiving core. Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky, the Yak King, as many like to refer to him. That's how he refers to himself, the Yak King. He is a beast, a big-time addition on day number 2 in the third round. Joe Douglas trades up. Jets get the deal done, and they add another big piece to the offensive side of the football after taking Olu Fashanu yesterday with the 11th overall pick. They trade up today, trade up to pick 65, move up 7 spots with the Carolina Panthers, and take Malachi Corley. If you're a New York Jets fan, you've got to be fired up, and you've got to be very happy with what Joe Douglas has done so far through these first 2 days. And of course, day 3, coming tomorrow. This is episode 300 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. It is crazy. We have hit 300 episodes. So thank you all so much for the support. As always, make sure to please like and subscribe on YouTube. Also show support as much as you can on the Apple podcast platforms, all the different audio podcast platforms, as we continue to grow, continue to provide the best possible content I can provide all of you here through the rest of the NFL draft, which will conclude tomorrow afternoon. And of course, at the time you're listening to this, many of you, it'll already be Saturday because I'm recording this right now at 11:37 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's a late night episode, a little bit of, again, an instant reaction episode, but we're getting as much content as we can out to you all here today. So Malachi Corley, a New York Jet. We got to give a ton of credit to Joe Douglas. Just the way that he has handled this entire offseason, showing the willingness to bring in, some big signings, such as Mike Williams, bringing in Tyron Smith, executing via free agency, and then also his ability to trade. He went out and traded for Morgan Moses, went out last night, moved back 1 spot, took Fashanu at number 11. Today, he moves up 7 spots, or I should say, 7 spots to get to 65, gets the first pick of the third round from the Carolina Panthers. Panthers move back to 72, and now he takes Malachi Corley, a weapon that many people, he went on a various top 30 visits. He was on plenty of top 30 visits. This was a guy that some teams regarded and looked as a first-round talent, somebody that they would take in the first round, and the New York Jets got him in round number 3. So that in and of itself, not even before we talk about the player and his skill set and what he brings to the table and how he fits this offense so well, just starting with that aspect of it, this was a guy that was on plenty of top 30 visits. One of those was with the New York Jets. This was a guy regarded by many teams as a potential first-round talent that you are now getting in round number 3, 65 overall. And the New York Jets didn't even have to trade into the second round for this. A talent like Corley was able to fall to them. And that's a credit to Joe Douglas for staying patient, not panicking, was seeing how the board was playing out, while the top of the second round had a handful of receivers. You had Keon Coleman go. You had Ladd McConkey go. You had Jalen Polk go. You had a couple different guys go. Adonai Mitchell went 52nd overall to the Colts. You started to see, some edge rushers, some tackles, some tight ends mixed in there, some safeties. You saw more of a run on trenches and defense. And a credit to Douglas for remaining patient, waiting all the way until the third round, and finding their guy in Malachi Corley. You've got to be fired up. And for the Jets fans last night that weren't on board with Fashanu, well, I think you should be now. Because the New York Jets arguably, by some team standards, got arguably a first-round, early day 2 talent in midday 2, round 3, 65 overall. So when you look at the trade, the Jets, of course, got the 3rd round pick 65. Take Corley with that. Now, last night, they got a 4th and a 5th back for Fasciano. They used that 5th round pick in this deal. So credit to Douglas. We felt he was going to move up. He uses the pick he got last night, the 5th round pick he got last night. He used that to move up for Corley, 157th overall. And of course, they also give them their 72nd overall pick, which for those that care, the Panthers selected Traven Wallace, linebacker out of Kentucky, with that 72nd overall pick where they move back 7 spots with the New York Jets here. So the Jets essentially moved up 7 spots, gave up one of their picks they have last night, and they still have all 3 of their 4th round picks. So they are still in a very, very good spot entering tomorrow with 3 4th round picks. Of course, still mystery relevant. Of course, the 6th as well. You've got to be really, really, really excited, really fired up, really pleasantly surprised. And I don't know if you want to say surprised, but pleased with how Joe Douglas has handled this draft, because there's a lot to look forward to as to what the Jets can do again tomorrow. Patience was key. They got their guy, and they didn't have to move in to round 2. They got their guy in round number 3. Let's go. Corley is a beast. 5'11", 215 pounds out of Western Kentucky. We talked about him a couple times in a couple different Mock Draft Monday episodes. The guy can do a whole lot. He's a gadget guy. Many people compare him to Deebo Samuel. But let's just put it simply here. He's the Yak King. Some people refer to him as the Yak God. He refers to himself as the Yak King. So that's what we'll call him here, the Yak King. And it's a good nickname. That's what he is. He is the Yak King. This is a guy that is impossible, very tough to bring down. When you go to his Twitter bio is literally the Yak King. So that's what he calls himself. We'll roll with that. Some people have called him the Yak God. Either way, yards after catch, he's dominant. He's special when it comes to that aspect of his game, and that's something the Jets can really use. He balances out this receiving core really, really well, where you've got a guy in Garrett Wilson that can do pretty much anything. He's a monster. He's one of the better young receivers in the game. And then you also have a guy in Mike Williams that is your typical number 2, physical, deep ball threat, not a great route runner, but a guy that's going to be an 80-20, 70-30 type guy, physical, jump ball, fits with Rodgers, fits the offense, great fit. And then that third receiver, you wanted to be that kind of that slot guy, can play the slot, can play the outside, that speed guy, and that's what the Jets get here in Corley. Last season, he played 377 pass snaps, 324 came in the slot. So this is a guy that primarily plays the slot, 51 out wide. And the Yak King is so true. He is very, very difficult to bring down. He's not a very big guy. He plays in a way when he's running bigger, I guess, than he is. 5'11", 215 pounds, you think he'd be easily to bring down, but with his speed, with his physicality, with his athleticism, he was one of the hardest players to tackle in college football last year. And that's something that'll translate really, really well to the NFL, is being able to force those missed tackles, get to the second level, and make something out of nothing. You know, he's a guy that can make a broken play into something. He's a guy that is excellent out of screens, is a great guy to use on screen routes, gadget plays, jet sweeps, things like that. His player comparison is Deebo Samuel, just because of the gadget ability, because of the ability with his speed, the yak ability, the tough to bring down. He can do a whole lot. He fits this offense perfectly. His ceiling's like a Deebo Samuel, but the way the Jets will use him might be similar to kind of how Randall Cobb was used all those years in Green Bay. And I know people have a bad way of looking at Randall Cobb now after what happened last season, and rightfully so. But people forget Randall Cobb was a very productive wide receiver with Aaron Rodgers. If Malachi Corley is what Randall Cobb was to Rodgers all those years in Green Bay, I think you've got to be thrilled if you're a New York Jet fan. That's kind of the way they're going to use him. And it's the third round again. He brings all these things to the table. It's the third round. He does need some seasoning, right? He does need some seasoning overall game. But when it comes to the yak, when it comes to the athleticism, when it comes to the speed, when it comes to being difficult to bring down the gadget guy, you can always find ways to use gadget guys, especially in an offense like this. You can always find ways. You know, the Jets last year were struggling. They were trying to find that gadget guy. They brought in Hardman, didn't work out. They had Xavier Gipson. He showed some good things, but all in all, didn't work out. Right? They kind of needed that other slot guy. They needed a slot receiver, somebody underneath, somebody with speed, somebody that can do a little bit of everything, somebody that can add a twist to this offense, keep the defense guessing. That's exactly what Corley brings to the table. Let's give you some numbers. Malachi Corley averaged 8.8 yards after catch per reception last season, second in the FBS among players with at least 100 targets. Jets wide receivers last season had 543 yards after the catch, which was the second fewest in the NFL. Jets didn't do well yak. They did not have a good yak team last year. This was a big need for the Jets. Corley fits a lot of what the Jets need here. These stats are courtesy of Rich Cimini. Another number here that he gave out on stats. So a ridiculous production after the catch, dubbed the Yak King. He has 2,680 or 2,068 yards after catch since 2021, which is nearly 400 more yards than the next closest player in the FPS, which is Oregon's Tez Johnson, who had 1,676. Let's read that again. Malachi Corley since 2021 has 2,068 yards after the catch, which is just absolutely crazy. Crazy to look at that number and see 2,068 yards after the catch. I mean, that number is absurd. And then one other number here. Did the most damage underneath. He's not a field stretcher. He's not a guy that is not a huge route tree, which he probably could maybe use a little bit more seasoning from that perspective. But he's a guy that's kind of an underneath route guy, that slot guy, screen, gadget. So 38 of 76 catches in 2023 came from behind the line of scrimmage. Only 7 catches of 20-plus air yards, had 4 drops, and only 8 contested catches. So not a guy that you're going to really stretch out deep downfield, go route, stuff like that. He's the underneath gadget, speed guy, yak. Give him a screen, he'll give you 17 yards out of it. And that's what he can do. Not many times do you see guys with that ability to catch screen passes, catch, 3-4 yard slant routes and be able to average 12.5 yards per reception, to be able to have 2,068 yards after the catch since 2021. Corley brings all that to the table. An interesting background. He was actually a former 2-star cornerback recruit, turned wide receiver, and here he is. Last season, he had total 79 receptions for 984 yards, 12.5 yards per reception, 11 touchdowns. In 2022, he had 101 receptions, 1,293 yards, 12.8 yards per reception, and 11 touchdowns. So a guy that has found the end zone a lot during his career. 29 touchdowns in his 4 seasons at Western Kentucky. His first year, his freshman year, didn't play a whole lot. But really, when you look at the numbers over the last 3, he's been able to get better each and every season. He's 22 years old, just turned 22. In March, he attended the Senior Bowl, looked really good. He was 2022, 2023 first team All-Conference USA. And to some people, it might feel kind of more like this is just a weapon. Somebody you can do so much with. And that opens a whole nother element to this Jets offense. Just a Swiss Army knife. Both as a receiver and, of course, those gadget plays. I'm fired up, man. I'm fired up for Corley. I really am. This was a guy that a lot of people were looking at. A lot of people wanted. 82.6 PFF grade last season. Can do damage. He's kind of that guy with just a very high ceiling. You maybe don't quite know how low the floor is, but you know the ceiling is very, very high. All the tools are there. Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. And now you look at this receiving core. Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Malachi Corley. They all complement each other very, very well. Credit to you, Joe Douglas. You've done an excellent job. He stayed patient, didn't panic, waited it out, got their guy in round 3. Didn't even have to move into round 2. Didn't even have to give up one of those 3 fourth round picks. So tomorrow's a new day. Jets, I'm sure, will go out, potentially get a quarterback tomorrow. We'll see what else they do. Again, by the time any of you are listening to this, it'll be Saturday. So today, what will the Jets do at that point? But stay tuned. A lot more content coming your way. I appreciate all the support. As always, make sure to please like and subscribe. Comment down below. For those of you watching on YouTube, what are your thoughts on this move? Malachi Corley, wide receiver, West Kentucky, is a part of the New York Jets. Let's go, Joe Douglas, Trader Joe. Welcome to New York, Malachi Corley. We'll talk to you soon. As always, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for tuning in.